Let me now bring in Jamil Jaffer, former associate counsel to President George W. Bush and founder and executive director of the National Security Institute. Jamil, it's always good to see you. What are you making of this prolonged impasse and the likelihood that we're about to resume strikes?
Well, Markie, it's a really hard question to answer, in part because what we've heard from President Trump is that he's actually decided to strike Iran, but that he wants to hold off to give negotiations more time. He said that now a couple of times. Vice President Vance has made clear that we're ready to hit back and hit back hard if we need to. But both have repeatedly said that that's not the president's preference, that his preference is a negotiated solution that involves Iran never having a nuclear weapon. For its part, the Iranians have made clear they intend to enrich uranium domestically. They intend to have the capabilities to go forward in the long run and have a nuclear weapon if they want to. That's the challenge. There's a huge gulf between the two sides, and yet there's no decision about what to do going forward. That, I think, is the hard part to figure out here, Markie, about what happens next, because neither side is clear about that.
And just walk me through that soundbite that we just played off the top there, Jamil, just as somebody who worked alongside President Bush when he was making critical decisions like this. When you have the President of the United States say out loud, "I was an hour away," do you think, why would you say that out loud? Was that a genuine plan, or is that posturing to pressure Iran to get back to the table?
Well, great question. I mean, I think President Trump saying he's an hour away, that means that if he really was an hour away, he was either an hour away from ordering the strikes or an hour away from strikes hitting, meaning the planes were already en route and they were turned around partway to their destination. The fact of the matter is that if, in fact, he was that close to a decision, regardless of whether the planes were in the air or not, right, that means that he thinks that there's something changed, right? Something changed that moment to think that there was a real opportunity to make a negotiated solution. The problem is we're not aware of anything like that. We're not aware of the Iranians making an offer that was more compelling, agreeing to not enrich uranium domestically, agreeing to hand over their cache of 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, 60%, which is not a long way from 90% because it takes a lot more work to do the first part than the latter part. In a lot of ways, this feels a lot like the Obama-Syria scenario where President Obama went to this podium in the White House, said as commander-in-chief, I've decided to strike Syria because they crossed the red line of using chemical weapons against their people, but I want Congress to authorize it. President Trump seems to be doing the same thing. I want Iran to negotiate. I was about to strike, but I'm going to hold off. The problem with that approach is if the other side doesn't believe it, and I worry the Iranians don't, it actually undermines your negotiating leverage because it shows that you're not ready to do the thing you said you were going to do. At some point, President Trump has got to deliver the message, I actually mean it, I'm going to start striking again. He hasn't been willing to do that for a few weeks now. That might make the Iranians think he's backing off.
And at what point does that lose its power? Because we're now in our 11th week of this, and in each week we hear the president reiterate, you better come to the table, make a deal, or we're going to respond in bombs. I mean, is it the boy who cried wolf at this point, and how much is that losing its strength, those threats, Jamil?
Well, I worry about that exact thing, Markie. It does undermine your negotiating leverage if the other side doesn't believe you because you keep saying, I'm going to strike, I'm going to strike, I'm going to strike, I'm going to open the straits, I'm not going to open the straits. And they eventually realize you just don't want to do it and you're not going to do it. And so that loses all of its leverage. The thing about Donald Trump, though, that Iran, I think, realizes is, A, at some point, he might actually mean it and do it. And B, he's actually done it before, unlike any other prior president, so maybe he will. That's about the only thing right now he's got going for him in this negotiation, because if you were just to look at it, if it were any other president and they were to do what President Trump has been doing, I think the Iranians would rightly read this as weakness and walk away and just say, our deal's on the table, take it or leave it. They haven't done that, I think, in part because there is this question about Donald Trump. Will he strike tomorrow? Will he do it? Just because he says he's over it. And that's a real possibility.
Yeah, I know Vice President Vance calling this a do-or-die moment for Iran. Last question real quick before I let you go. We all watched the U.S.-China summit last week. There was very little evidence that the two world superpowers forged any sort of agreement to end this war. What do you make of the fact that we're not yet seeing China budge on helping us reopen the Strait of Hormuz? How are we supposed to read that?
Yeah, I think it was a strategic mistake, Markie, for the president to go to China and ask for their help. They don't want to help. It benefits them to have the U.S. in this Iran quagmire. It benefits them to look like they're the power the U.S. needs to come to get this thing resolved, that the U.S. can't resolve it itself, that they need China's help, that we need China's help. And at the end of the day, they were never going to help. They don't want to help. And so asking for it seems like a silly play. We're here now. It is is what it is. I think that China's gained some benefit from this. But at the end of the day, also, it's notable. There were a lot of concerns the president would give it on Taiwan and the like. He didn't do that. And so I think that's a good sign as well. And so, we'll see how this plays out. The fact that we didn't do a big deal with China, actually, I think is the right thing, given how oppositional China has been to the United States over the last weeks, months, and years.
Yeah. We'll see what comes next, but we're all waiting at the edge of our seat. Jamil, Jaffer, thank you so much, and hopefully we see some sort of resolution soon. Appreciate your time as always.